Okay. First of all, so today is called the TOEFL Journey. Basically what I'm trying to get across with this is how when I turned up to this country and to Avalon, I absolutely sucked at teaching TOEFL, and it's possible I still do now. But I hope that I've improved a little bit, and I'd like to show how that improvement has come about. I'm aware that a lot of the teachers in here are experienced middle school teachers and have probably done the TOEFL for longer than I have. But even so, I hope there is something that I can share with you that might help you at campus. And if you are kind of new, I hope there's lots of stuff. So let's go. Okay, first of all, I'm from Scotland, which I tell everybody every single day. My first couple of weeks in the country, nobody understood a word I said, and that's still possibly the case. Currently, I'm the head teacher at the Avalon campus in the northeast. Caleb at the back there is my co-teacher. We have 3 foreign teachers at our campus, so it's kind of small. We teach both elementary and middle. In fact, today we have Halloween event. Do you guys have Halloween today? Hands up? No? You haven't, Fabian? Yeah, so today is a very long day for us. I was forced to teach TOEFL. Never really asked for it, never really wanted to do it, but eventually they said, hey, your number's up, go and do it. And I was also forced to give this presentation. So thank you very much, Brian. No, I'm joking. Brian was very nice about it. Okay, so a quick outline of what we're going to do today. First of all, arriving as a newbie, being fresh in the country, how it feels, and some of the challenges that you face. Then I'm going to go a quick tour of the TOEFL website, which hopefully most of you have already used. If not, I'll show you how I use it and what we can use it for. After you've gotten over the initial fright of being a newbie, I'm going to go on to how I developed a strategy to get better. Number 4 is my favourite part. It's called TOEFL Detective, which is when I really became obsessed with cracking the TOEFL. And then number 5 is the next level, which is where I'm at, which is where I'm trying to utilise all my knowledge to be the best teacher I can be. So number 1, arriving as a newbie. This is actually my first ever computer game, which possibly gives away my age slightly. But as you can see, we've not started our game yet, we're not even on level 1 yet. We've got many challenges ahead of us, and this is kind of how I felt when I arrived in the country, kind of nervous, let's see what happens. So on your first day on campus, there's a bunch of things going on, but one of the first things you might see is something like this. And if you're anything like me, it makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. But what you soon figure out is that it's split into 2 sections. That's if you are a middle school and an elementary campus. And what I figured out early is, at least in the elementary section, I can mess around, I can wing it, I can distract the kids. So here is a slide of my first class. Kind of like a zoo, kids shouting at each other. So you kind of figure out early on that the kids, at least in elementary, you can distract them and play around. However, middle school is a different animal. Middle school is a little more like this. In fact, this might be more fun than your first middle school class. So as a newbie, when I don't really know my material, this is more intimidating. I really feared going into middle school. It was just so quiet. Kind of thought the kids hated me. I felt they were very judgmental. And because of that, a bit more mature, they can see that I don't know what I'm doing. So they're harder to distract. I really like middle school now. I completely changed my opinion on that, but that was how I felt when I arrived. However, what I feared the most in middle school was the TOEFL. Kind of because the students have a higher level of English, so perhaps they are judging even harder. Maybe there are more expectations. There's a test at the end of it, so your performance is kind of measured. They've often been in the system for a lot longer as well, they've come from AO perhaps, they've done the TOEFL test a bunch of times there, they move up to TOEFL level and they realise, more TOEFL. So, maybe they're getting more bored. The thing that put me off the most about teaching the TOEFL initially was this, the books. So here's one unit, it's a question, let's look at another unit, another question, and basically we just have question after question after question. So with some of the other books, G level and J level, and even H&M, everything is based around a 2-week theme. So at least you have something to aim for to teach. I find one of the most difficult things with TOEFL is that it's just, to me, a bunch of questions and it's hard to come up with a strategy. So what I did in my first few months was I didn't have much confidence in how to teach the book because, as I say, there wasn't much structure given from the book, in my opinion. And also, I had a bunch of students that have a higher level of English than I'm used to. So I tried to kind of bend to their styles. Instead of teaching a style or a structure that I had confidence in, I tried to give them all individual tailored feedback, and basically the kids could see through that. I kind of felt like I was winging it. I felt like the students could see that I didn't really have a structure I was confident in. And the result was that the essays that the students wrote were very difficult for me to correct and to give them advice. So the TOEFL scores rarely got above 17 for writing. So mainly I'm going to talk about writing today. So now we're through that. I'm just going to show you the TOEFL website, which if you have seen it before, I'm going to show you different ways that I try to utilize it. Looks a little bit like this. Hands up if you've seen this website. So not everybody has seen this website. Not a complete waste of time now. Okay. Even if you haven't, I'll show you how I use it. So this is a very useful resource, I think, one of the most useful resources we have if you teach the TOEFL. This is the web address. I can email it to you. I think it's on the handout I gave. And basically it is Avalon followed by a three-digit code, which is your campus code, and that is also your password. So you select here. I'm not going to take too much time explaining how to go through this. If you want some instruction, give me a shout. I'll give you my email. Or ask somebody at your campus. So you've logged into the website. What can you do with it? If you select these two options, it will bring you to this page. And this is a history of every single TOEFL test that your campus has ever done, going back to the beginning of time. So hours of fun in there for you at the weekend, if you want to have a look over that. If you don't want to search by the particular test, you can use the calendar function over here. So a bunch of information. That is the Korean name. Here is their test score, made up of 4 sections, and their total score over here. And if you click on this, it gives you the individual student profile. So there's a bunch of information in here. Korean name, last 6 tests this student has written. But this is the first thing I like to focus on when I'm using this website. I always print this graph off just to, first of all, show the students I care and that I'm actually paying attention to them. So if you're trying to build a relationship with your students, I think they appreciate that you sort of looked into their, how they're doing. But the main reason I like to print this off is to try and give them some encouragement. So no matter what this graph says, this is like the history of the student scores. No matter what this says, I will put a positive spin on it for them. So that's very easy to do for this student because she has gradually gotten better, which is why I chose her. It makes me look good. A lot of students don't think they're getting any better at English. English is hard. Being a Korean student is hard. So I find they really enjoy to see that they are actually getting better. Of course, if I had shown this student at this point, that that her graph, she might have been disheartened. In that case, I just find another graph from another student that struggled and say, hey look, this student sort of dipped, but got better. Another interesting thing about this graph is that most of the students, in my experience, don't know how their score came about. So they get a number at the end of it, and they don't necessarily know whether they were strong in writing, speaking, or listening. So every time I print this graph off and give it to the students, I find they're interested in it. If you want, you can listen to the speaking scores. I've actually got some of these on my phone, so I use these for lessons. Instead of using my campus's speaking scores, I use other campuses. I don't know if I'm supposed to do that, nobody stopped me. So that way they don't embarrass themselves, and they don't get embarrassed. Although I pretend I'm going to use their scores, and they're absolutely horrified when I do that. But the most important thing for me is this one over here. You can click on their writing section and bring up their essay. So I'm going to go into more detail later about how I use this, because I found a pretty practical use, I think, but we'll go into that later. Okay, so developing a strategy. So I've come through my first couple of months. I really hate going into the TOEFL classroom, and I can either lock this out for the rest of my one and only year in Korea, this is now year 3, or I can come up with a new strategy. So we've taken our magic Mario mushroom, we've still got a bunch of challenges ahead of us, but we're confident we can face them. So the first thing, it's pretty simple, but it took me a while to figure out, is just to settle on a really simple structure and be confident selling it. What happened to me in my first few months is there was a very experienced TOEFL teacher at our campus, and I basically saw her as some sort of god. Like, she was the only person that knew how to do TOEFL, and she had this structure that was very good, but it never really fit in my style, and I never really understood it. So, as I say, my first few months I go in and I try and sell the structure, and when it's not working, I kind of give up on it, and the students can see that. So I really think you have to settle on whatever you're going to teach with confidence. Even though those students are not necessarily talking, not necessarily enjoying the lecture, just assume they will, because they might be listening more than you think. And I remember trying this in my first T2 class, and they were one of those stereotypical, quiet middle school classes. And I thought, you know, I just have to keep going with this. And to my surprise, after a few weeks, I could see they were getting better. Every essay I took in was following the structure I gave. So already, because I was selling the structure so hard, I could see the improvements compared to my first few months when I didn't really believe in the structure I was doing. So you have to have confidence in what you have. I'm just going to quickly show what we use at our campus. I give this to students. It's kind of just split into 4 sections, you know, a statement, a bunch of details. We do a past tense example just to show the TOEFL test that, hey, we can do different tenses. And then we do a restate section. I'm not going to go over this too much because everybody is going to have a different style for writing their essay. There's a bunch of advice on the internet. Everyone knows how to write here. However, I would encourage, you know, give them some very simple handout like this, tape it in their book, let them copy it until they're comfortable with it. This is a bit of a closer up. You know, use underline, embolden it, italics it, whatever, and just sell as hard as you can because they will learn it. So pros and cons to selling a very simple structure. Some cons, and these are the ones that I felt in my first few months, were that I was stifling their creativity. I had a bunch of students come in who were good at writing, but instead of just giving them something and selling them something, I tried to tailor their responses, and the results weren't good. I think the pros outweigh the cons because you give them a framework to display the English they do know. They don't have to think about structure. They just get on with getting their idioms out, getting all this vocabulary they've learned out. But the main thing is it gives you confidence teaching. If you know what you're delivering, you can go in there a lot more confident. The results. This is our results from 2 separate years. The first few months, as I say, is on this side, and then after I implemented some changes on this side. As you can see on the left-hand side, 1 of 13 essays were a 20 or above, but a few months later, 12 out of 20, and a couple of 22s as well. So a much better improvement. Some of the students might have been stronger, but having read all these essays were definitely much better and followed that structure. So just to recap the structure a bit, yeah, you have to be confident in what you're teaching. If you're not, the students will see through that. I would encourage trying to keep continuity for your campus as well. We only have 3 foreign teachers, so that's easy for us to do. We can talk to each other. However, I do encourage that, like Caleb, for example, can experiment with the structure or experiment with a particular class. Generally speaking, we try and keep it the same for them, so they're not jumping about from semester to semester. And the main thing is, don't doubt them, because even if they're giving you some blank stares, they're often listening more than you think. Okay, so now that I've kind of become a bit more comfortable teaching the TOEFL, I move on to a stage I call TOEFL Detective. So that's from, at the start, I did not want to teach this subject, but now I'm kind of obsessed with TOEFL. I'm trying to figure out every angle I can to get an advantage in the test. There's a bunch of things I should be doing on campus, but all my time is taken up teaching the TOEFL. So I call it TOEFL Detective. So I gave a brief introduction about myself at the start, but I didn't tell you everything. So I'm from Scotland, as I've mentioned already today, and I do tell everyone that every single day. There's not many of us here. 20 years old, honestly. And I was a professional football player at home. I had to stop due to a heartbreaking leg injury. And the final thing is, although I am a teacher, I have a second job as a detective. And if you don't believe me, I have some photographic evidence. So, as you can see, I've been working out a little bit. That's me on the job. This guy wasn't happy, but you know he was speeding, so he has to. Don't do that. I've met some pretty important people. He was standing on some sort of platform. He's not really that much taller than me. And yeah, so I kind of decided, you know, what's my mission here? Well, kill the TOEFL? No, because then I'll be out of a job. But I guess I kind of wanted to do everything I need to figure out the way to beat this test, to maximize the scores. And I'm thinking, we've done structure, what can we do next? So the next thing I moved on to, I find it very easy to teach the students, and it's very effective in raising the scores, is transitions. So I'm sure a bunch of you guys teach transitions already. But in my first 6 months, it wasn't something I focused on. I kind of wish I'd known that just focus on something simple after structure. It took me a long time to figure this out. So we made, I made this sheet which basically has a bunch of transitions on it. As you may be aware, the TOEFL test does not like it if you start sentences with and, but, so, because. If you read the BBC website or the Guardian website or the New York Times, confusingly, they will start sentences with and, but, so, because. However, the TOEFL test does not like it, which I will prove later. So if you want to help your students improve their scores, that's one thing to know. So I give them this sheet, this handout. They're kind of horrified when they see it, because there's 2 sides to it. But I tell them basically just learn 1 from each box to begin with. That's better than nothing. And once you've learned 1 from each box, you can learn 2 and mix it up for each body paragraph. And of course, you've got your own transitions. These are just some examples. Caleb adds in his own. So everyone has their own style again. Once again, if anyone wants a copy of this, I can send it to you if you ask for my email. So yeah, what basically happened then was I'm paying a lot of attention to this website and I'm trying to crack this TOEFL code. And something really interesting happened, or I thought it was interesting. There were 2 essays that caught my attention. This is an example of the first essay. I've highlighted some parts just to kind of give you a flavor of the student's style. Self-esteem as a concept, which means how much you trust yourself and how much you love yourself. To me, it seems pretty strong English. She's using good vocabulary, Generally, it makes sense. In this section here, she's used, quotations, semicolons. She's talking about experiments. I don't know about your students, but this is one of our better students. She has, to me, pretty strong English. The essay reads very well. She speaks very well when she speaks, which is about once every 3 months. Caleb knows what I'm talking about. But yeah, her English is always this good. Whenever she writes anything, it's this strong. This isn't her best stuff, I just like grab this random one. And then there's this essay. 424 words in the first one, just to point that out. And there's the second essay. So I'm just going to read a little bit from this essay and see what you think is better. So, almost all younger people know about internet very fast. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. They hate small word. If they use smartphone for a long time, then their eyes could change badly. This phenomenon is our society. Does that make sense to anyone? Or is it just me? Generation is changed. Therefore, they are very important existence to people. Also, idol stars are previous existent about people or their fans. So I hope it's not just me, because that doesn't make a great deal of sense to me. Anyway, this is kind of common for this student. She always writes and speaks like this. She tries very hard. She's one of my favorite students. But any guesses as to what scores those essays got? Maybe giving the lead in here. Which one do you think scored higher? Essay 1 or Essay 2? Essay 2, because I've kind of given it away. Yeah. Essay 1 got 20. It's pretty solid. Kind of disappointed we couldn't get her above that ceiling, which is why I became obsessed with cracking this test. Essay 2 got 25. No, that's what I thought. I didn't understand. And to be honest with you, at this point, I wanted to give up teaching TOEFL. I thought this test is complete rubbish. This essay is 10 times better than this essay. This gets 5 more points. So this really kind of interested me. I thought, how has that happened? Instead of giving up, because I need a paycheck, I decided, let's try and figure out how this happened. And that brings me to this website. This is one of the most useful websites I've found, and we can do a bunch of stuff on this website. So what it has is, you paste the essay in here. You can paste the TOEFL essay from that website. If you haven't done a TOEFL test, use their IBT writing, use whatever you've got at your disposal. Paste some of the writing in here. And there are some basic stats on the right-hand side. The ones I focus on, because I've decided they're important, is unique words. It counts the amount of unique words that you use, but not just the amount, it gives you a percentage. And another one I noticed was difficult words. Kind of ambiguous, what's a difficult word? There's a bunch of stuff out there on the internet which will advise you as to what counts as a difficult word. But one thing I do know is that the TOEFL tests are not being corrected, our campus anyway, by a human, by handwritten human. It's being corrected by a computer, which surprises some of the students. Some of the students really seem to think that there's somebody there correcting their handwritten essay and giving it back within 10 seconds. That's not the case, I don't think. So what I do know is it's probably using some sort of algorithm. It's using, if not this, something similar. Difficult words, just to a resource I use. It's on their website for free, so I'm assuming I'm allowed to use this. This website has a bunch of words that they consider difficult words. However, I would encourage you to utilize our vocab tests when trying to get to put some more difficult vocabulary in. The vocab tests they have at T-level are absolutely ridiculous. I don't understand half of the words. But I think if we can encourage them to remember 2 or 3 of those words from each test, or you can bring some extra vocabulary, you are going to increase the percentage here, and hopefully increase their score. Just to compare some statistics from those 2 essays to see why that essay got a 25. Anything that jumps out? Difficult words. Difficult words was much higher. So actually, unique words. This student, first student, did 165. She has a higher unique word count. However, her percentage is lower. Reason being, she's done more words. So that's the first thing I figured, is that we do tell them to try and do 300 words in their essays. We certainly do at our campus. This is the first time I realized that more is not necessarily better, at least for the purposes of the TOEFL. Anything they're putting in there, if it's using some sort of algorithm, I think it's just basically going to water down whatever they've got. And yeah, the biggest jump is from difficult words. 77 words to 112, and a massive percentage increase. So I kind of want to use this information and see if I can improve it further. I've highlighted some things from the second girl's essay, the one that made absolutely no sense. And all the stuff I've got in yellow here are all the transitions she's used. She's varied her transitions. She's reused them when she has to, but she's tried to vary them as much as possible. The red is where she's used some big words that she possibly doesn't understand. I'm not encouraging you to tell your students to do that, but she has tried to get some difficult vocabulary into her essay. And the result appears to be a 25. So I named this girl the transition word queen. And at this point, I should let you know that I gave part of this presentation to my students. And as you can imagine, I was very popular when this photo came on the board. This student has since quit. I don't know if these two things are related. But yeah, she is one of my favorite students of all time. As I say, she's not the best at English, but she listens to every single word you say and she implements it. So she's the transition word queen. Here she is on her travels. As you can see, I'm kind of like, I can't Photoshop. This is the best I can do. To me, that's funnier. So here she is on her travels. And just when the classmates thought they were getting away scot-free, I stuck their picture in as well. So at this point, the whole class hated me, treating everyone equally. That's me. Anyway, okay, so I'm not quite done yet, but I'm kind of thinking, right, we're getting along the way to proving something about the TOEFL, I'm learning something here. But I'm not finished yet, so when somebody new comes to your campus, at least at our campus, we have an opportunity to retake the test. Does every campus have that? You guys can take the test again? Because when a new teacher comes to our campus, we can do the test again. Normally I pass that opportunity up, because it involves coming in 2 hours early. However, this time, when Caleb came, I decided, yeah, I'm going to do the test, and I'm going to try and run an experiment. So what I did was, I wrote 2 identical, or almost identical essays. We do 4 paragraphs at our campus. I've actually heard that 5 paragraphs can be better, probably because of unique words. But anyway, we do 4 paragraphs. So I wrote 2 almost identical essays. And all I did in the first one was kind of repeat my vocabulary at a certain point. So I used the word smart 5 or 6 times here. I also started with but, so. And I didn't put as many transitions in. And on the second essay, it's exactly the same amount of grammar mistakes. So there were like 3 subject-verb errors, I dropped article. The essays have the same amount of grammar mistakes. But all I've done is I've replaced some of those but, so, and because with extra transition words. I've also in green highlighted some extra words, some adjectives. I've tried to encourage my students to describe, if they're talking about a person, put an adjective in. So instead of saying, you know, my cousin Jimmy went to here, you know, my obnoxious cousin. That's another way of increasing the words. If you can get them to use adjectives to describe people. I've also changed smart. So using synonyms, just trying to increase that word count again. Having looked at the stats, you can see, yep, unique words are up on both number and on percentage. Difficult words also have increased. And as you can guess, the score increased by 6 points. So it's the same essay to all intents and purposes, with the same points, the same grammar mistakes. All we've done is switch out some of the vocabulary, and it's led to an increase of 6 points. I just want to re-emphasize the point that this student, her name was Ashley, her English is not that great, but I really feel like we helped to kind of, I mean, her scores aren't fantastic, but we helped to beat the test. As you can see from her listening score, or her reading score, very inconsistent. She's very up and down, 7, 14, 3, 10, 9, 16, all over the place, which I think is more of a true representation of her ability. But after her first 14, she never did below a 20 for writing. She gets this 25, which is a complete anomaly. She didn't really deserve it. Then she gets a 22, and she's kind of disappointed with a 22. And I read her essay, and I said disappointed with a 22 very well. I didn't tell her that. And then at 20, she's ready to quit. However, it was more like a 14, you know. But she has bulletproofed her essay, or we helped bulletproof her essay, and she can deliver a 20 every time we're writing that. And she really is not that strong. Yes, to recap, transition words, very important, as I think I demonstrated. But you can also, as we're trying to tackle the difficulties of these books, I think we can also work on synonyms. So you can come up with some sort of plan for your T2, T3 class. You can do 2 or 3 weeks just on synonym work. This is key to me. More words are not necessarily better. I have one of my favorite students right now, fantastic writer. But she, even when she was in GB, I taught her in GB, she was doing 300 words for her e-writing. Students struggle to get 100 words. She would go and make a whole project over it. She's still doing that. She does 500 words. Her score never comes over 17. Also, I noticed that students tend to listen more when you supplant their heads onto somebody else's bodies. The first time I tried to teach this transition stuff, I just went in with my worksheet to that quiet class, and I said, hey, transitions. And I drilled it into them. And they learned it, and their scores were good. However, it was incredibly boring for everybody. So the second time around, I decided I'm going to make this PowerPoint up, and the kids really liked it. Even the ones that might not have been engaged before, they kind of listened. So that taught me that, you know, we've got a bunch of stuff at our campuses, and my first 2 years, I never thought to use it. So now I'm trying to make grammar points with my PPTs, if you've got time, or I'm using video more. So basically, try and utilize what you have at your disposal. Even if it's once a term, the students then are going to know that something special might happen today. And it gives you kind of some credit for the next few weeks, I think. Okay, how I applied what I learned to an actual lesson. So as you know, Korean students can often be very competitive, especially the boys, but that's not limited to them. So I decided I want to use the competitive nature to my advantage. Here are 2 students at my campus currently, and these are 2 of the students that I referred to earlier as kind of, they've been in the system for a long time, they've done the TOEFL test a bunch of times, maybe they're getting a little bit bored. They're very nice students, but I can tell, you know, they're not really passionate anymore. But they're 2 students I had in mind when I wanted to exploit their competitive streak. So, going back to this website, what I did was I plugged in one of their TOEFL essays, or IBT writings, and I basically made a quick worksheet, copied and pasted their essay in here. I gave them some feedback up here, to make it look like I cared, well, you care. And I put their statistics from this essay in this corner here. We have a computer room at our campus, and I've made an email for the campus. So I would take them to the computer room for a lesson after this, and I would basically say, here's your previous essay, go and beat that. Go and beat those statistics. And if you do, I will give you nothing, because you'll have forgotten next time. But you can give them stats, you can give them whatever you want, but they might just get, I find most of my students, especially the competitive ones, just kind of too pride in trying to beat their mate. Very easy for you to do this, it doesn't take a lot of time either, because all you do is copy and paste what they've emailed to your campus address, stick it back in, your new words come out. So I found this as a way of kind of motivating them, and also getting to see the change. So I would try and do this before the TOEFL test, maybe immediately before, just to kind of have it fresh in their minds. If they're finished ahead of time, they can recheck for synonyms and repetition, but I found this was a way of utilising that information. So finally, so next level, and that's what I'm trying to figure out now, is what we've learned a bunch, we've no structure, we've taught them transitions, but how can we kind of make teaching T2, T3, T4 not intimidating and give it a structure? Because one of the things that I found difficult is that the T4 books are the same as the T2, at least in writing. So I kind of want to have some sort of syllabus or some sort of plan. So now we've got our car, we've got a bunch of weapons, ready to go to the next level. So I've got a kind of rough roadmap for what I want to see happen at our campus, to try and make it easier for the teachers as well. And it basically goes that T2, just basic structure drill, as I mentioned earlier. Actually, Caleb at our campus pointed out that some of the students who I assumed were super strong at this, they needed refreshing on it. So don't assume they know their essay structure. MA does not prepare them for this, so that's the first thing to focus on. If they're doing well, I would say, move on to something else, like transitions. There is a problem in T2 in that some of the students have they've done the TOEFL test a bunch of times. Maybe they've been in T2 for 2 terms already. What I do in that case is I take those students outside and I explain to them, you are going to have heard a bunch of this stuff. However, I'm going to give you idioms, I'm going to try and make it worth your while. And another thing I do is I get them to maybe write an essay on the board together, so I do a selection game, and whoever loses comes and writes the next sentence on the board. I did that this term, and they all liked it. They all got to copy down the structure. It slowed the lesson right down. I was able to go over certain points. We were able to correct grammar mistakes together. So even the experienced T2 students quite enjoyed that. After that, it's just something I call bolt-ons, and that basically means trying to find things to layer into their essays to bring them to that native level, that extra level. And the one thing I would say is don't focus on doing too much. Maybe focus on one grammar point, and maybe focus on one other cool conditional for them to learn or something. Our campus, I focus on the second conditional early on. I think they get this wrong a lot. If I saw an alien, I would run away. They always mix that up. They say, if I see an alien, I would run away, or whatever. And that kind of, I think, separates them. So we focus on second conditional. And then basically that's the same T3, T2, and by the time you get to UO, good luck. By that time they've been in the system for so long. But yeah, try and find something to focus on, and don't focus on too much though. It takes a while to get this stuff. Here's an example of a worksheet we use for the second conditional. It's got the grammar point in the top right. Here they can change the verb, so if I something, Stephen's wallet, with money on the street, I would walk. So if I found, if I stole, they can change the verb, they can have some fun. I like to give them a question at the bottom of this sheet. And the good thing about this is you can make this relate back to the TOEFL book. Because obviously the parents are paying for the TOEFL books, so you don't want to go completely rogue. So you can make a question here relating back to the book, so nobody complains. Another thing we do at our campus is for past tense examples. We have 2 truths and a lie. So I'll give them a worksheet with 3 stories, and they kind of enjoy this. They enjoy trying to get to know you. I mix this up every time. So this takes a long time in your lesson. And the main point is that they can then go and write their own 3 stories. So this is a fun way of just practicing past tense examples. But you don't need to do it just for past tense. You can do it for any grammar point you want. And I'll sometimes carry this over into the speaking lesson. So maybe they write their examples in writing class, but then for speaking lesson, we can read the stories out, and that kind of takes up 1 week of lessons. I think I finished a little earlier than I hoped, but thank you for listening.